It's been about how do we help every visitor to a destination? And if we can do that, then our content should rank and everything else should take care of itself. And this is more sustainable than trying to game one facet of an algorithm, because the algorithms change time and time again. And we're seeing that more than ever with the new generative search experience from Google right now. And it's going to keep changing, but if you keep helping people, you win long term.
You're listening to the Vacation Rental Managers Podcast with Sarah and T.
Sarah stands for me, Sarah Bradford, a 15-year vacation rental company owner in Colorado who sold the company for big bucks last year.
And T stands for me, Tim Cafferty, who's still moving and shaking with two companies, Outer Banks Blue and Sandbridge Blue, in North Carolina and Virginia, respectively.
Between us, we have managed over 700 properties, making lasting memories for over 100,000 guests, and produced over 150 podcast episodes and counting, sharing all of our secrets to growing a profitable, long-lasting vacation rental company.
We like to call those secrets pullover moments, and it wouldn't be possible without support from our pullover partners, ICND, Key Data, and Sojo.
We're back and better than ever. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Tim.
And today we have a special guest on with us. Might have been in the title, so you saw, but David Angotti, many of you know him in the industry, is joined us here from Tennessee. Is that right, David?
That's right. Good to be here.
It only took us 159 episodes to get the beard on. You have the best beard. Oh my gosh. We are in the video platform now, so you guys can see it. But those of you on audio, check it out. And David, those of us who don't have any hair up on top, very envious.
Yeah, if I ever cut it, then I can't do content marketing. I think there's like a biblical story there or something.
Yeah, he looks really smart, you guys. You'll see it on the video clips. I know he's smart because this guy, man, there's a lot of background. I'm going to let him tee that up. But anytime I have seen David Angotti in any kind of presentation at conferences, I have filled notebooks. I mean, like, I'm writing notes so fast, taking pictures, even though he's saying, I'm going to give you the slides, just pictures and text to my staff. Do we do this? Do we do that? Oh, we should do this. This guy, you know, you remind me in a way of Trent Blizzard long ago, to just give you so much information of what to do in 2007 on SEO. And that's what David Angotti's like. So David, give us a little brief history. You have, as you've said it yourself, you have had a seat in every seat you can have in this industry. What are those roles you've played?
Yeah, so it started out with purchasing a vacation rental. And we tried out several property managers and then had this idea, we can do a better job than any of these people are doing. So we started self-managing our properties. Went pretty well. So we decided to launch a property management company. That went really well and grew quite quickly. So we sold that to Steve Milo and V-Trips. Following the sale of that, we had this website that we built, and we carved that out of the sale. That became an OTA. That OTA started growing very rapidly out in the Smoky Mountains. So then we launched a second OTA and then a third OTA and developed this booking technology plugin that can actually turn any destination website into an OTA. So like a DMO or CVB site into an OTA. Following all of that, we got purchased by Guesty. And along the way there, while this was all going on, I also did purpose-built vacation rentals and developed out of a neighborhood out in the Gatlinburg area. And now I'm on the team over at Guesty. So along the way here, I've been a consumer of products. I've been a vendor. Now I'm on staff with a PMS. So I've had the seat at every side of the table, which I think gives me a unique perspective when it comes to the different stakeholders in the industry.
And what you didn't even mention is you're an SEO content building expert. So how did that all come into play?
That was really a title that got slapped on me before this industry. So we had an educational technology brand that my wife and I built and exited prior to all of that. And along the way there, I figured out SEO. But really, I don't like to be described that way. I like to be described as this person that helps people, because I really think that that's what content should be about. How does it help the end consumer? This isn't about gaming a search engine and figuring out their algorithm. It really never has been about that for me. It's been about how do we help every visitor to a destination? And if we can do that, then our content should rank and everything else should take care of itself. If we don't do that, it shouldn't. And this is more sustainable than trying to game one facet of an algorithm, because the algorithms change time and time again. And we're seeing that more than ever with the new generative search experience from Google right now. And it's going to keep changing. But if you keep helping people, you win long term.
You just mentioned the Google and the changes there. I'm just curious because it's been so recent. What are your thoughts about them changing the rules of the game in the middle of July on us this past year?
You know, the rules are always changing at Google. And if we get caught up in the rules that are changing and try to jump when they say jump or do this thing or that thing to stay on top of it, we're really playing their game instead of our game. The key here is Google changes things all the time. This isn't new. About 400 algorithm updates a year was the number that was said a few years back. We only know about a few of those typically, but it's constantly changing. And then in addition to that, you have the layers of change. So who is searching for it? What kind of device are they on? Where are they searching from? What's their search history look like? All of these different factors around personalization, in addition to all of the Google algorithm factors, you can't stay on top of all of that, even if they gave you the whole playbook. What we can stay on top of is developing best-in-class content that people consume and people want to tell their friends about, and that makes sense. If we can do that, we'll win. If we try to stay on top of all of these different factors in an algorithm, then we're going to lose. That's just really all there is to it.
Well, there is so much we could ask you about today, so many different facets, but we've agreed and we're excited about talking about content marketing, SEO as far as smart SEO to help the consumer, and a little bit maybe about PR. And we have listeners, David, we've found out recently that don't even know why we would talk about this because they only get their bookings from Airbnb or VRBO. And so just to be blunt, the reason you want to listen to David is so you can build up your website, build up your direct marketing presence to guests. Does that sum it up?
Yeah, I think so. I would argue actually that anybody that does not care about book direct does not understand supply and demand. And
Tell us more.
The more demand you have for a given room night, the higher the price is going to go. That's pure macroeconomics. Supply and demand curves work that way. It's the same way that pricing on any widget would work. If you have 100 people that want to buy one widget, you can get more for it than if you have nobody that wants to buy the widget or one person that wants to buy the widget. So having a book direct brand is one more demand channel for your properties. So I'm pro listing sites. I founded 3 OTAs. I have no problem with OTAs. However, I'm also very pro direct booking. And all of that together creates the healthiest brand that has all of these inputs on the demand channels that lifts your ADR as well. So this idea of like, hey, I've got all my bookings from Airbnb. One, doesn't understand risk because that can change. And then two, doesn't really understand supply and demand.
Let me move over to content marketing. You just said a bit ago that you like to help people. You helped me about a year and a half ago focus on this whole thing of content marketing, which you do a fabulous job of and have for years with your various companies. A lot of the content market I've seen you do is relative to the destination. And some of the content marketing I'm seeing in this area is relative to the company. Is there a balance there, or do we not worry about the company? Just talk to us on big picture about content marketing. What should our focus be?
Yeah, can you give me an example of what you mean there by company marketing?
Well, for instance, the destination in my mind would be maybe a company that's in an area that doesn't have many competitors. But here on the Outer Banks, we have 38 competitors. And so we might do some content marketing about telling people why Outer Banks Blue is better than XYZ down the street and the offerings there.
No, that's a great point, Tim. So basically, destination marketing to me is that can be in a destination with one property manager or 500 property managers. That's about how do you lift this destination up? How do you basically convince somebody to come visit this destination? If somebody's in your destination, how do they have a better time with the content? That's going to power where they go eat for dinner or what hikes they might do or the beaches they visit. These are inputs into their vacation. And when we make these inputs into people's vacation, they have a better time. They should have videos and photos and best in class content. When we do that's destination marketing. You get into company marketing, that should be really driving home whatever our USPs, our unique selling propositions are. So that's Warren Buffett described this as a moat around a business that was so important that he wouldn't invest in or buy a business unless it had that moat. The unique selling proposition has these three ingredients. What are you selling? How does that fulfill the needs of your consumer? And how does it do that differently than anybody else in the market? If you can answer those three questions, that's what the company marketing is going to be around. So, for example, in a destination like Orlando, where VRMA is coming up in the near future, you have Disney down there. There's certain perks that happen at those resorts. That's a USP around Disney resorts because you get certain access hours to the park or things like that. That becomes a unique selling proposition for staying at a Disney resort, because if you go stay at a Hilton property that's not associated with Disney, you don't get to access the park an hour early. That's a unique selling proposition. So we have to figure out what that is for each of our businesses. If we do that, then we have it.
And to follow up on that, what I heard you say, I think directly, and I hear you say again, if I do a good enough job at the destination marketing and provide some really cool content, that makes me an expert and I get the residuals on that anyway.
That's right, because you're going to have that top of funnel that comes into your funnel from the destination marketing. The unique selling proposition is an amplifying effect on the top of funnel.
On the whole funnel concept, and someone's listening and go, yeah, I want to help people too, but I also want to get bookings, which is, if you're helping people, then you get bookings. What would you say to someone, let's say that has 30 properties, maybe wants to get to 50, smaller player in the area. They're not outsourcing their marketing at this point. What should they do? Like, are there a couple, you got to do these three things right now? For example, would you say you should be writing content and adding it to your website continually via blog or something else about the area?
So this becomes a bigger question. There were a couple questions embedded there. Outsource versus in-house. Do we start now versus later? What type of content? All these questions could be their own episodes, really, because each one of those gets very down in the weeds of the particulars of that individual company or that individual that works at that company and what their skill set is. At a very high level, what I would say is if you want direct bookings, you're going to have to work for them. So if you do believe in that supply and demand curve we were talking about a minute ago, and you do want business stability, then it is going to take work or resources or both. Once you reach that conclusion, then you get into all of the different questions around what medium are we going to use first? Is it going to be a blog post or an evergreen page on the of content? Where do I start? And those are good questions. But first you have to decide, am I going to tackle this? So what I would say is, there's a million keyword research tools and ways to look at the demand around terms and how visitors actually view our destination with, based on data. But that's a lot to try to tackle if you're new at this. So most of us, if we've worked in short-term rentals or vacation rentals for even a month or two, we've talked with guests and we know their questions. Those questions that guests have can be the foundation of our content strategy. And so that would be like, what's open here on Thanksgiving Day? Great. Now there's a blog post about all the restaurants or all the attractions that are open here on Thanksgiving, because these are the questions that we were having over and over again from end consumers. Our most successful piece of content ever, which has had over 15 million views now, was a fall leaf map. It all started with questions that people had about when do the leaves change colors. And so you have to listen to the guest. And in ways that's more valuable than all of these paid tools we have over here. And the guests will tell us what they want. And that's the beginning of the content strategy for a beginner.
All right. I love the idea of listening to guests and creating content around that. I've said it on the podcast before. Everyone asks us about altitude sickness in Colorado. So we did blog posts on that, and they became like your leaf map as the number one piece of content, but then it got them to our website, right? And then they started searching. And through all of those blog posts and all that content, maybe it's an evergreen page, our website went from nothing to number one search ranking. It really does work. What else works? Like let's say someone says, okay, I started doing that. What else should I do? And maybe do get into outsourcing versus non, because 10 years ago when I first met you, outsourcing was not very common. But now it's gotten, some of these things we're supposed to do are so time intensive that we are outsourcing. How do you answer someone's question about that?
Yeah, so outsourcing, that's one of those really tough decisions we have to make, because we're wearing all these different hats as property managers. We're having to meet with the owners one day, we have an upset guest the next, or probably the same day. Then we're meeting with the city on something, and it just doesn't feel like we have time. The danger becomes anytime you outsource something you don't understand. If you haven't taken the time to learn this, you won't know what your deliverables are. If you don't know what the deliverables are and what you should be paying for that deliverable, you have no business outsourcing. And that's where I see people make a mistake. They get a contract and it says, hey, we're going to rank your site in spot one, or we're going to produce 10 blog posts, and here's what you get. It's this package. Packages also are a warning sign, because very rarely will you have a best-in-class partner that's going to give you a package, because it's not as easy as 10 blog posts, because the 10 blog posts are going to be different. All blog posts aren't 350 to 400 words. That's just not how life works. Some are longer, some are shorter, some have original photography or graphics, some don't. And all of this is something that you have to understand inside and out before you go and outsource with somebody else. You're going to get the short end of the stick on that, unfortunately. So on the outsourcing, that's my biggest piece of advice. Know what it is you're buying before you buy.
So when you get those emails that say, can I post on your blog? That's probably not the one to answer. Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, that gets into the link building aspect of it, and links are this thing that SEOs love. We want to build links, and I wish that terminology could just be ripped out of the SEO book forever. Really, the links that have any value are similar to PR. It's editorial coverage you earn. If it's something you can go do, it's worthless. If it's editorial coverage you earn, it's worth something. So for example, Sarah's page she was talking about on altitude sickness, if she creates this page and it's a really good resource, over time, bloggers or newspapers, different sites may link into that. When they link into that, then that's a sign to Google and the other search engines that this is an authoritative page that should rank. And so the more times that happens, then all of a sudden, now your whole page can start to rank, even the pages about the properties you manage. And so that's where that PR editorial coverage piece starts to come in. But these links that people are doing on the blogs where, hey, let me write a post and put it on your blog and it's going to link back to my gambling site, that's not going to help you. It's probably not even helping them, to be honest, because Google can see right through that stuff.
That's so 2006.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So more on content marketing. What are some other tips for people trying to get their website to rank higher?
Yeah. So again, like I would not make this about like ranking higher. If you make it about ranking higher, what word are we talking about, or words? Do we even have the right ones? We're probably going to list 3 words that Airbnb and Vrbo are ranking for that would be the very most difficult to go after. So that gets into this idea of keyword opposition to benefit, or COB that it's called. And so there's keywords that are what are known as long tail keywords. They're 3 to 5 words long. And then there's keywords that are the big keywords that everybody would say, that's the one I want to rank for. If you go after the one that everybody wants to rank for, it's going to be the hardest to rank for. If you go after some of these other ones, they're going to be much easier. And as you rank for these other ones that are easier, over time, you'll move up on the ones that are harder over here. So that's a better strategy. And where you find those is a combination of those guest questions we were talking about, the things that guests are searching for. So the properties, for example, Gatlinburg cabins that are pet friendly, Gatlinburg cabins that are near the strip. Those types of pieces of content, even if we're doing commercial content, are going to be much easier to rank for than Gatlinburg cabins. And so as we start to go after those longer tail ones, we'll develop authority that then will apply towards the head term or the broad term over here. Does that answer it? I feel like
Absolutely. Yeah. And it just keeps making me think about content repurposing because I'm such a fan of that. Talk about that a little bit, and the listeners thinking, okay, I'm going to create these blogs or I'm going to create these evergreen pages. Well, that's not where you stop, right? Because then you can link it into your newsletter or your e-blast to a guest or even to owners. Or we used to put it into our email system. So when somebody had a question about altitude sickness, then we link to that page. So you can use this content in so many different ways.
They're really to be thought of almost as like flywheels, and they start helping each other the more you have. And for example, let's say we have all of these good hiking reviews on SmokyMountains.com. Now we may want to do a blog post over here. So the hiking reviews are evergreen. We spent money on videos and photos, and we made directions to the trailhead, the best times to go. All of that's over here. But now we want to make a post of the 7 best hikes with young children. That post can now be its own unique post that links back to these pieces over here. Again, don't think so much about search engines. Think about helping the different people. Over here, we're helping the person that wants to do Laurel Falls Trail. Over here, we're helping the parent that has a 5-year-old. Is it good for search engines? Absolutely. But would it also make sense if there weren't any search engines? Yes. And if you think about it that way, you're probably doing it the right way. So people want to overcomplicate this, how you interlink and all this stuff. If you're trying to game the system by interlinking, you're probably hurting yourself. If you're trying to help the end user, it's going to look natural and it's probably going to help you.
God bless our homeowners who always seem to have a better idea about certain things. I had one come up to me and said, you know, you're really not spending enough on pay-per-click, Tim. You really need to throw some money at it. We have another 20 minutes to talk about pay-per-click, but you can't spend your way into relevance. Can you, David?
That feels like a loaded question, Tim. I think with enough money, we probably could, right?
Oh, yeah. If you had Sarah's budget, you could.
What do you think about AdWords these days?
So we spend a lot on Google ads. We spend a lot on Facebook ads, and it works. But what I would say is it's easier for that to work the more properties you represent. And the reason is if you drive somebody into a site and you have 10 properties, you don't know the dates they're searching for. They may be searching for dates you're completely sold out. You don't know the property type they're searching for. They may want one that's 3 bedrooms and pet friendly with a indoor pool. And maybe you don't even have that property. However, when you start to grow that inventory and you get up to 200 or 500 or 5,000, all of a sudden, now you probably have a property. And if anybody in the market has one available, you probably have it available. And so it becomes this, do you have something to sell problem that you're solving for? And then also psychology of end users is a lot of times they want 2 or 3 properties that fit their needs. Otherwise, they aren't able to compare them and make sure they're getting the best deal and all these other things. And so what we've seen is the more properties we have, then the more scalable the ad solution becomes.
You surprised me with that answer.
So the way to think of it, all this is, it kind of all comes back to that supply and demand, right? Mm-hmm. And so you want as many inputs in on the demand side as possible. Each input has its advantages and disadvantages. I don't think of them as good or bad. I think of them as a holistic approach probably includes them all to some degree. And so you take something like Google Ads. that's going to give you bookings today for money you spend today. You take something like content marketing, that's going to give you money in a year for something you spend today. Airbnb or these other channels, they're only going to charge you if it pays off. And so you have all of these different inputs that are coming in, and together it makes a holistic strategy. And that really gets into the customer acquisition cost by channel, and then how does ADR change if you have all these things turned on. But that's the mindset I approach it with.
David, on the topic of helping people, where I have felt that the strongest is wanting to help people get off of OTAs. I mean, truly to say to a guest, stop booking there when you keep staying with us, or trying to help someone understand how to reverse search. So in the spirit of helping the guest in that way, what do you suggest companies do to get guests off OTAs?
I think the first step is understanding why are they going to the OTA. And so it would be, hey, can I pick your brain? I'll send you a $50 Amazon gift card. I would love to talk to you about a marketing problem we're trying to solve. And do that a few times with these guests that have booked with you now 2, 3, 4 times through an OTA each time. And what you're going to find may surprise you, because I've had some conversations around this with different property managers. Sometimes the cancellation policies are more favorable on the OTA than they are on their own site. And so that's why this end user is going to book on that OTA. Other times it was a trust issue. They felt like, for whatever reason, hey, I'm more protected over here than I am on this site. But there were a lot of different reasons that would start popping up. And these are reasons that then once you expose them, you can deal with them. Cancellation policy differences. I can tell you, as somebody that's in this industry, I was booking a month-long rental 2 years ago or so, and I booked it through an OTA. The reason I did that was I wanted a cancellation policy that was more lenient than was on that property manager's website. And it was much more lenient. And so there are different reasons that people will do this. And if we deal with those reasons, we have the best chance of success. So finding out what the reasons are first and foremost is the key ingredient here, I think.
That's a great point, because I think we all just assume, well, we're going to save them because we're going to get them to pay less. So of course they want to book direct, but we forget about the other reasons, is someone might continue to pay with the trust or a cancellation issue, or they just really don't know that they can go find our website.
It's trust a lot of times. I can tell you that quantitatively from owning OTAs. And these guests will sometimes even come to us and say, hey, we found this property over here for less, but we wanted to book it through a reputable site. And so we've had that exact exchange via email multiple times, many, many times through the years. And so they see it over here on this site. The design doesn't look as good. The booking process is clunky. Then they come over to our site, which looks trustworthy and has an easier booking process. So they realize they're paying more and they're okay with that because of a higher trust. If they feel that way about littlesmokymountains.com or floridapanhandle.com or hawaiianislands.com, imagine how much more so they feel it about booking.com, verbo.com, or Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
So
great point. And it's just, listener, you've got to get your website looking as good as these OTAs, and you can do it. But I agree. I don't like booking anywhere that doesn't look like it's a real awesome, easy to use website. So,
hey there, this is Marcia with Sojo. As you all know, guests and owner expectations have never been higher. So, wow them with thoughtful gifts specially curated for the important moments in their lives. It's never been easier to deliver an in-home gifting experience that drives loyalty, great reviews, and awesome memories. Sojo leverages the power of automation to create custom gifting programs. These deliver the right gift for every reservation, new owner onboarding, and more. With the holiday season quickly approaching, definitely be sure to capture this demand and elevate the guest experience. Whether this means a welcome card or even a tote bag with wine upon check-in, surprise and delight your guests to make them feel extra special.
I got to come back to one thing before we get to some more fun parts of this podcast. You mentioned the moat, the USP unique selling proposition. I worked on this with my company. I know that Tim's worked on it with his, because I actually went to the Outer Banks and helped him with it. This is hard. This is not easy. The first two parts are easier that you mentioned about it, but the part about what makes you unique and how do you define that to your guest? I mean, unless you are the only one that has houses on water, or you only have the large homes, or we gave wine and a cheese board to everybody. How do you talk to our listeners about how do you figure that out? What really does make you unique when it really push comes to shove?
This is something that each brand has to figure out for themselves. But what I can tell you is it's absolutely possible. I would point to the bottled water industry as a really good recent example. You have this industry that's a few $100 billion a year, and it's selling something we can get free out of our tap. And there's Aquafina and Dasani owned by Pepsi and Coca-Cola. You have generic brands and big brands. And there's no way I would want to enter a space like that. It's as crowded as it could possibly get with generics and name brands and huge ad dollars behind it. Yet this company comes along and creates a company called Liquid Death. And you may have heard of it. Now they have a multi-billion-dollar valuation, but they just entered the market a couple years ago. Their USP boiled down to two things. They wanted to stand out because the backstory here is the guy that founded the company was a literal rock star, opening for other rock stars, and would see the rock stars backstage pouring out their beer or energy drinks and filling it up with water and going out on the stage because they wanted to look cool. And they had this idea, if these guys want to look cool, there's probably other people that want to look cool too. And so from all of this, they come up with this idea of their USP is going to be this really cool looking can, and it's going to be canned water with a name so stupid it would have to stand out. And then all of that was the USP, and it took off and it grew, and they did have a marketing background and that didn't hurt. But now, of course, Liquid Death is on store shelves everywhere. And so that's just a silly illustration outside of our space, but it shows you how even on something as saturated as bottled water, you can develop a USP. This is going to be sitting down with stakeholders in your business, owners, maybe guests, the employees that work with your vendors, and asking them, what makes us different than all of those other companies? What should make us different that we could do? And figuring all of that out and then packaging that up in a good marketing story.
I think that what you just said about what should or could we do, because I do feel, and this isn't knocking on anyone, that a lot of companies will look inside on that question and go, there's nothing. You know what I mean? At this point, there's nothing. So you almost have to create it the way Liquid Death did.
Yeah, it's not always going to be easy. I can tell you that this gets down to experiences. Are we willing to invest into experiences with our guests? That could be bonfires on the beach. It could be s'mores kits. It can be all kinds of different things. But what are we doing to make those vacations more special when they book with our brand than another brand? And if you pull that off, if you make these people better parents, better spouses, then you've probably accomplished building a USP that's unique for your brand. So figure out how you can do that, and then you'll be able to leverage that for more money.
I read on a website of a really smart guy who might be on this podcast at this moment that what we do is we're creating and buying dreams. Our guests are. Anyway, so.
I guess we can figure out who it was.
Oh, it's the beard. Speaking of which, we warned him in advance. We're going to play this inane little game with David that we haven't done in a while, but we have a lot of fun with it. And we hope you will too. It's called Rapid Fire. We ask you a series of questions. You can answer in just a few words or more wordy if you like. So somebody start a clock. All right, David, I know you're a runner and you like trails. What's the location of the best run or hike you ever had?
Leadville, Colorado. Just finished it in August of this year, the Leadville 100 run.
Wow.
And apparently you had a bunch of dudes there we know in the industry. Did they just come to support you because they like you that much?
There's some of my great friends in the industry. Ryan Dame came out, Steve Schwab came out, CJ Stam was out there for almost a week with me, and he was the crew chief and actually also was a pacer for me. You're allowed pacers on the last 38 miles that can run with you to make sure you stay sane. And he ran up a very significant mountain with me, and we had all kinds of amazing conversations in the middle of the night.
Wow. 2 episodes in a row with this shout out to CJ. Okay. When's the last time you didn't have a beard?
It was in January. So basically I'm not even a big fan of the beard, but my girls want me to grow it every year. It has something to do with Christmas. They think I need a big beard by Christmas. And so every January or February, I shave it off, and then they start nagging me to Dad, you need to start growing it again. So
photo, please. Never have seen you without a beard.
It's scary.
Little known fact about David, at least I was not fully aware of it. He's a certified airline transport pilot. What's the craziest or coolest plane you've ever flown?
So I flew the Citation 10, which was the fastest civilian airplane in the world at the time I flew it. I flew it for a company named NetJets, flying mainly A-list celebrities and CEOs who would fly high enough to see curvature of the earth out in front of you and would just scream along. It's about 20,000 feet above the airliners.
Okay, well then I have to ask, tell me a famous person that you flew.
My favorite was Neil Armstrong. It was just pretty cool to fly the guy that was the first person on the moon. And then he actually, he took us out for ice cream, DeGrader's ice cream in Cincinnati right after we landed. And we were supposed to have another flight. And he was like, get in the car. And we're like, sir, we have to, we have another flight. He's like, I'll take care of it. So he called into the dispatchers and he's like, the guys are with me. We're going for ice cream. He was real gruff. He ordered the ice cream for us. We didn't even get to pick our own ice cream. He's just like, sit over there. He goes through the line, ordered the ice cream, and he like gave us our flavors, and we ate ice cream and took us back to the airport. So that's probably my favorite. Did
you ask anything dumb like, how was it when you went on the moon?
He wasn't real talkative, but his wife that was with us, but he was not.
Interesting. All right, next question. What's the best TV Netflix type series you've watched lately that you can't get enough of?
Ooh. Succession?
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
I may have been late to that party, but we just started binging that a little bit ago.
Okay. I got 2 more. Quick one here. You are a magna cum laude graduate of Thomas Edison State University in Trenton, New Jersey. Do they have a mascot?
Not that I'm aware of.
How does the school not have a mascot? Is that a thing?
Maybe they do. I wasn't the best student.
Was that like a real super smart place? All right. My question back to vacation rentals. What's the one thing you see a lot of vacation rental companies doing or not doing that you wish you could stop or start?
So I think it would be all of these harassing and threatening type emails that you get when you're a guest. So I stay a lot in vacation rentals. We stay there with my family, and it's these huge checkout lists, which of course have received a lot of attention here this year. I understand why we have them. I understand all that. I've been in property management, but if we have a checkout procedure, let's convey it in a kind manner. Let's drive home some gentle messaging, but not this like bold and underlined, and then this one's in red right below the bold and underlined one. It just drives me crazy. My eyes are bleeding by the time I finish reading it. Just pick a couple things that we really need them to do, like load the dishwasher or change the thermostat if we need them to do that, but not like 41 items to check out.
So true. Sometimes I've seen them where they're different fonts, so you can tell the manager just keeps adding things and get annoyed with a guest.
Yeah.
So then there's like 25. They don't even realize they already said that one at number 3.
That's right. That's back to Tim's owner probably that he was talking about earlier. That owner keeps calling in and they keep having to put another one in.
Yeah. And another thing. Okay. So you're out there on the trail, hiking, running, doing whatever, you're chilling out, and you're listening to your tunes. What's that jam? What's that band or song that you got to hear?
Like Morgan Wallen, Living the Dream by him. That's one that resonates. And the reason it resonates, I think that so often people have a view of other people that is inaccurate. And so here he is, this country star, rock star type lifestyle, and he's miserable, at least according to the lyrics of the song, talking about how the dream is killing him. But then from the outside, it looks like he has this awesome lifestyle. And I think that we all have that to a certain degree as we view others. And so that's why I like that song.
So David, thank you for that. As usual, you knew nothing but our endearing and undying appreciation for you taking the time to do that. So now it's time for Not So Hot Off the Press, but definitely happening, our little news segment we like to do. And we're bringing David in on this because you know what happens here in just a few days, Sarah.
VRMA, or they like us to call it VRMA, the Vacation Rental Managers Association Conference in Mickey's hometown, Orlando, Florida.
Yes, the International is there. And in previous years, we've done a podcast on what you should do at the conference. And quite frankly, we're dialing it back a little bit this year because we've dialed it back, and like to just give folks a little tips here and there about how you can get the most out of the conference. Sarah, do you have a number one tip you like to pass on to folks?
The number one tip is if you submit a presentation, you don't always get chosen. Don't have to feel hurt.
Wow, that hits close to home, folks.
Especially if you have good, relevant content to share, then I'll stop there.
Yeah, if you've been in the industry for many, many years with much to share. So Tim and I didn't get selected for our takeaways. So that means that we will be walking around with a microphone asking you for your pullover moment of the conference. Mr. David Angotti did not get chosen for some panels he was selected on. I'm only on one panel, and it's with the business broker, Jason from Raincatcher, and the company that bought us to talk about selling. So I am really excited about that. But besides all of that, David, Tim, and Sarah will all be wandering the halls. And what do you do when you wander the halls, David?
I like to just talk with people. To me, that's the real value of this. I'm not saying the sessions aren't valuable. They are, obviously. But the real value is the relationships that you walk away with, that you then know somebody that's probably going through the same stuff that you're going to be going through in 3 months, and you can reach out to them on the phone. Am I going crazy? No, you aren't. We're going through this too. And those relationships that you walk away with, one, you gain from them from a business, but two, you also gain a friend. And those friends that you gain, that's worth the trip down there to me. And so I will always buy somebody a beer or a breakfast, a coffee, anything like that. That's what we're there for. Let's make friends with each other and get to know each other better if we already know each other.
That's fantastic. Along that line, a tip that I've picked up is when I actually do go into one of the breakout sessions, particularly, I will look for people who ask great questions and make note of who that was and then seek them out. You say, you may run into them or just see them or whatever, but when you see that person up there and you see them 3 times and they've asked 3 really good questions, I want to know that person. So go and seek them out. And the other thing I've said for many years during the session, which of course we're not doing this year, and I'm not bitter about it at all.
No, it's okay. We're not a fresh voice.
No,
okay.
Not a fresh voice, but I'm still a voice. Is that you need to take a list of things away from the conference that's going to pay for the cost of your conference, whether you are paying it individually or whether you have a team of people going, as I have 6 going. And those folks need to come back and say, these are action items that we can profit from that will help us pay for that trip and bring me back many years to come.
Yeah. And I think one of those profit items can be a few people you connected with that you can always ask how they're doing it in their market. So it is completely okay to walk up to someone you don't know, introduce yourself, get the guts, right? Like, of course I can do it because I'm obnoxious, but even if you're a little shy, most people are very open and willing to chat at this conference. David he just said he's going to buy you a beer. So, I mean, breakfast. David, bring your pocketbook. The final thing I wanted to say is Tim and I have some special ribbons for your conference badge. So if you see us, David, we're giving you one.
All right.
You're going to want it. Come on, find Tim and me. You know what we look like. And just come right up and say, I want my ribbon.
That'll be great. Any other tips from the two of you?
Yeah, I like what you were just saying, Tim. And I would just add on to that one thing. As somebody that's spoken at a lot of these conferences, I feel like a lot of people end up there for intellectual entertainment. And they love what they see. It gets presented. They take their pictures or their notes, and then they go home and do nothing with it. And there was a guy in the internet marketing circles named Brett Tabke that would run a conference, and he would tell people on the first day, if you already know something, don't sit there and think I already know this. Think I needed to hear that more than anybody else. Write that down. That's takeaway one. And each of us needs 3 takeaways that we write down before we leave of either things we already knew and didn't implement or that we heard for the first time. And then those 3 takeaways pay for the conference. And he would always talk about that. And when you said that, it reminded me of it.
Sometimes sitting in a session, you don't write down anything they said. It's a quiet time, almost like going to church, where your brain is quiet for a minute and you think of things that you haven't remembered to do, or ideas come to you based on something someone said. So do go to sessions. We're not saying don't go to sessions, but also don't freak out if you miss the 2:00 one, if there wasn't something you're just dying to see. Hang out in the hallways.
All right. Well, great appreciation to David Angotti. We talked to him earlier about his resume. He's self-managed his home. He's built a property management brand. He's built an OTA and a couple of more. He's built a new StaySense Amplify product to drive free direct bookings to property managers. Now he's building purpose-built homes in the Gatlinburg area, and he's built some more knowledge for you listening today. So thanks so much, David. We appreciate you being on today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Later. See ya in 6 days.
Or less.
Bye.
So long, everybody.
You just listened to Sarah and T, the Professional Vacation Rental Managers podcast, hosted by Tim Cafferty of Outer Banks Blue and Sandbridge Blue, and Sarah Bradford, former owner of 2 vacation rental companies in Colorado, now advising other VR companies to thrive and grow. Today's episode was brought to you by Sojo, our podcast partners who are on a mission to make Turn Day suck less by automating your guest amenities. Never order or kit amenities again. Visit getsojo.com/SarahAndT to claim 30 days of free guest amenities exclusively for Sarah and T listeners. Special thanks also to IC&D for hosting Sarah and T's website. Sarah and T love to hear from their listeners. You can reach out to them on Facebook, LinkedIn, or their website, sarahandT.com. They always love to read a review on your favorite podcast app. Even better, if you like this episode, share it with a friend. Sarah and T will be back with a new episode very soon.